So your latest album, Cemetery Junction, was released October of last year and has gotten good reviews. How do you feel about the feedback you have gotten?
Well, I mean, I think probably it's as good a feedback, but the response from the press and the fans worldwide has been as good as we've ever had in the 35, 36 years history of the band. So that's very pleasing after all this time to get the sort of to get that type of review.
Do you feel like the process for recording this album was different compared to previous albums?
No, not really. I mean, we always set about things in the same way. We obviously work on songs in the first place because I think that, being as our music is classic rock based, you need to start with a good song. And I think throughout the career of Demon, we've always, started with as strong a song as we can, and then I think if you build the tracks and the album, you can only get better with the recording.
Related to that, do you think that newer metal bands or newer rock bands, do you think that there's a difference between the focus on songwriting today compared to back in the 80s, for example?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, where I came from, when I was growing up and listening to music, I mean, I think there was more of an emphasis on the song. I mean, I use a saying, I'm a sucker for a song, and I think, yeah, it has changed. I mean, there is still a lot of good songs around, but I think the actual way that music, especially in rock, in modern rock, I think, yeah, it did change. It's become a little bit more technical, but that happens because I think everything has to change and move on. But, maybe not so much, it starts with a solid song. But I think at the end of the day, people work in different ways. But, yeah, I think rock is still an outstanding music worldwide wherever you go.
Do you feel like the rock and metal scene has changed a lot compared to the 80s, aside from the obvious, like, say, the business portion? Do you think that there's, like, any cultural changes that have happened between then and now?
Well, I mean, there's been so many changes, obviously, as you just touched on, but yeah, I mean, going back to the early 80s, I mean, when we came through, which obviously, our early days, we were involved in what's now called the new wave of British heavy metal, which came off the back of punk music, and was young and fresh. I think the difference these days is obviously the business is very much driven by money. Obviously, I mean, money is an important thing in the business. What's changed also is basically in the old days, a company would invest in a band, and whether it be rock or any form of music, and would be willing to sign that band and work with them through 2 or 3 albums or even more and singles until eventually that type of band from the 70s and 80s was successful. I think the thing today is obviously it's investment requires an instant success, and I mean the world has changed. Obviously, record companies are not the same as they were. I mean, I think that there's an whole new medium out there. Obviously, the world has changed in that respect. Obviously, with downloads as well, and I think the one good thing about rock music is there still is, and it's got bigger again, a liking for vinyl.
Do you feel like the internet has given Demon a lot more exposure and more
Yeah,
opportunities?
yeah, I do actually, because obviously, we came about in the early 80s. There was a bit of an explosion in Britain, and then it moved on quickly. Thrash came in, and the sort of Bon Jovi, and then Metallica and the thrash thing. That's how it evolves. And for bands like Demon, I mean, you know, we continue, we moved on, we progressed. But I think the great thing is when we came to the late 80s, early 90s, that how much, you know, the internet played an enormous part for us. I think that, you know, it was a great help. And the difference today is you press a button and you can see the complete works of a band, the history of a band. For people like Demon that weren't the household name, that weren't, you know, that weren't the Def Leppard, shall we say, of the day, or Metallica, or Iron Maiden, then, you know, people could go below the surface, press the button, and they could find out everything they wanted to, which you can today about those bands, you know, that didn't become, you know, the big headliners. But yeah, it's been a great thing for Demon because you know, the contacts we have and the places we go mainly is because of the coming of the internet.
Even though you've been the constant member of Demon, how do you feel the different lineups contributed to the band musically, because you've had so many different stylistic changes throughout your discography?
I think what we've tried to do, I mean, you know, the great thing is that there have been a lot of changes. I mean, and I think the reason being is that, you know, that if you don't make it to the very top, then, and then you're trying to keep you know, I've always believed in trying to make a better album and be a better band. And so what happens along the way is because you're not in the big bracket, people will tend to leave and people move on to other things, and then other people come into the band. But I think we've always kept our identity. The whole idea from the first album, for me personally, was to never make the same album 13 times or twice or 3 times. And, you know, maybe if one album would have sold 5 million, I might be telling you the next 3 albums sounded the same, but that's a little bit of English humour, by the way. It's a bit of a joke. But basically, I always wanted to, when I grew up with music and I bought Pink Floyd and people like that, the next album was totally different than the one before. And over the years, I would, you know, Deep Purple and Hendrix and people like that, they didn't always make the same album. So I always wanted to move on and, you know, make a different type of album. And I think we've always been able to draw on great musicians. There's people who've left the band, and then there's people who've come back. But to me, they're still good friends. And when you've been going 35 years, you know, it is very difficult to remain with the same lineup. But I think we have a distinguished sound either way. And if you hear Demon from the 80s or you hear Demon today, I think it's an immediate thing. Maybe because it's got the same vocalist as well, I don't know, but you know, we've tended to move on, but keep an identity.
I had fans submit questions, and one person wanted to know specifically about the Steve Watts years. How do you feel about the material you wrote and recorded then?
Yeah, we did some great stuff. I mean, when Steve joined, it was a low period. The first 3 albums or 4 albums I'd written with the late Mal Spooner. At that point, we brought a keyboard player in, and there was quite a few problems we had with companies, and I won't go into it, but it wasn't a group problem. And at that time, you know, the first thing was the loss of Mal Spooner, who was the co-writer and co-founder. So Steve and myself started to get together, and we did, I think, three, maybe 4 albums. We did Breakout, Taking the World by Storm, and that period, which, it was a very, very constructive and a very progressive sort of period. But once again, it was something that I'd always wanted to do, was to move on every time. And I think, you know, it was perfect with Stephen there, and I think we did some really good material, and it was a really good period for the band, and a very sort of happy one.
Are you still in contact with him, and do you know anything about any musical projects that he's doing?
I've not spoken to him for some time. I know he lives. It's been a while. I've been in contact. Not actually spoke by phone, but emailed, and obviously, we've been in touch on the sort of sales and things, and we keep in contact. But I think he did. I think he did some project. I can't remember what it's called now. He did a project. I think if he tap it in somewhere, it may have gone on the Dude's Revenge, something like that. Steve Watts Dude's Revenge, something. If you tap that in, I think you can find that he did something a couple of years ago, which was quite interesting. But I've not. I don't know if he's actually. I don't think he did a great deal after the period when he left the band. Don't know if he. I think he went some while before he got involved. And as I say, I think of the last 3 years maybe he's done some sort of project under that name. But I haven't spoken to him personally. But no doubt at some time in the future I will.
Demon split up in 1992 and reunited in 2001. Why did you choose to reunite then?
Yeah, that's what everybody keeps saying when I do these interviews, but we didn't actually. No, we Demon just took a few years out. I did a solo album, and we had about 3 years where we didn't gig. I think it was about 83, 84, 93. Where are we? 93, 94, and I did a solo album. We just took some time off. We didn't. We took about 3 years off from playing. I think 97, 98 we did some dates in Germany. It was just there was a gap between albums, and as I say, the band we were still around. We've been playing. We've been touring since '79. So we decided to take some time off. I did a solo album, and other people did a few things on their own. And then 2-3 years later, we started to do some dates again. And then we actually went in the studio again in '90, and we brought out Spaced Out Monkey. But the band never actually disbanded. It was just a little bit of a break we had.
Okay, because all over the internet it says that Demon had split up for those years, but they never mentioned that it was a hiatus.
I'll have a look on that, because every time I do an interview I get told this, but I can assure you we didn't. I mean, after about '92, I did an album for a company in Germany, Semaphore, Welcome to the Real World, which I've just reissued. It was reissued last year, remastered and redone. So. But basically, a company asked me to do an album, so I did it and spent a bit of time. But no, it was not. Those things on the internet are not true. We didn't actually disband.
Okay. In previous interviews, Steve said that he felt the name of the band held it back from being more successful. Do you feel that is true?
Maybe so, but I think a name's a name at the end of the day. I think. I think after we lost Mal in 83, 84, it would have been easy just to say, well, let's call it a day. But, we had made some headway in the business. And I always say that, once again, I'm quoting Pink Floyd, that calling yourself Pink Floyd in 1967 was not relevant in when they made albums like The Wall, Dark Side of the Moon in the 70s. But I mean, a name was a name, but in some ways it may have held us back. But we decided we would go on and stay with the name. I think we've come through that over the years. It's people have understood, and the fans and the followers of the band have accepted that now after all these years.
Do you think that bands addressing taboo subjects like the occult and witchcraft is more accepted today than it was in the 80s?
Maybe so. I mean, we didn't. I mean, only on our first album when we did Night of the Demon. I mean, it was The Unexpected Guest. Our second album was just an observation of things unknown. I mean, it wasn't particularly, sort of devils and witches. And I think by the time we went to the Plague, we realised that we didn't want to do themes of the past. I wanted to be involved in sort of modern things. But I think that most things are more accepted all these years later than in those days. So it's, it was a bit more sensationalism, I think, in the early 80s. I mean, you couldn't really say much, but I think good or for bad, most things get said today because of the internet, because of, obviously the way the world has changed.
How do you feel about being listed as an influential band? Did you ever expect that?
No, not really. No, I think we do tend to bump into, I read things where certain bands have been influenced by what we do, and when we've done festivals, I met bands that they've come up and said, oh well, that particular song influenced us and this, that. I think it's very, very nice, because what you realise, I didn't expect in the first place. I mean, when we did Night of the Demon all those years ago, I didn't expect that 2 years or a year later anyone would remember us, but that's quite amazing. But to get people, that do mention that, which a lot of people seem to mention, that the bands from our period influenced them, and Demon do get mentioned. So it's very, very nice. I feel quite proud, because it does tell us that maybe we did the right things, and a lot over the years.
What are some of your fondest or favorite memories of Mel Spooner?
Mel, he was a little guy, stood about 5'4". He was a great guitar player. Played left-handed guitar. Fondest memories, yeah. The problem that Mel had, he from a child, he suffered with some sort of lung problem, and only one of his lungs was actually working properly, and so he had to take quite a lot of medication. But he never complained, and I don't know. We had some great memories. He was a personal friend, and I remember sitting in the back of a shop, and I think we were writing things, the Night of the Demon album, and then in a friend's house, just sitting there writing The Unexpected Guest, and obviously the first time we ever played, I'll never forget, the first time we played in London, we did 2 nights at the Marquee, the old Marquee, and we were only on stage for about 10 minutes. So I remember turning around, because Mal had stopped playing, and he'd slid down the wall and collapsed from food poisoning. And it was the same night I was wearing a devil suit and horns, and I used to climb in the back of like the drum riser, and then come out on stage, and the roadies had put the drum riser right up to the wall, so when the lights went down, I couldn't get in. And but I remember that evening well, because within a few minutes I'm standing there with a latex devil suit, with 500 people in the Marquee, and then Mal collapses, and he was okay. He came through it, but I can sort of remember memories like that on tour. But he was a great friend and a very, very talented guitar player and writer.
What are some of your favorite places to visit while on tour?
I like most cities we go to. We went to Barcelona about 3 weeks ago, but unfortunately, I mean, it is a beautiful city. I didn't get a chance to see it, but we have been there before, and I got to see. But yeah, I remember going to the only times I've been to America. We played in New York and New Jersey, but the thing is, New York always impressed me, because it reminded me of a film set. All the streets were straight, and these huge buildings, and everywhere you turned, it was almost like, as I say, a film set. I think the only thing I didn't see in New York was Woody Allen and Superman, because the world has been so New York in so many ways, and I think that's a great city. But I mean, most places I've enjoyed sort of European cities, and I like to travel, and but I mean, I think mainly for me it's the audiences. I mean, the audiences. The enthusiasm of rock audiences I love, and the most impressive is, no matter where we go, to think that I could walk on stage and sing something like Night of the Demon or Don't Break the Circle, which was written 30 years ago, and people virtually anywhere we play would start and sing the number. So I think that's my fondest memory of cities and places we've been.
Do you feel like your fan base has gotten progressively younger with the exposure from the internet?
Yes, yeah, definitely, because people come up to us now. I mean, in certain places, you can, Central Europe and places, or wherever, people will come up to you and, maybe someone's 60, someone's 40, and someone's 17, and to realise that that sort of cross section, especially like say a younger audience, and the younger bands I've spoke to, but definitely it's been the internet. It has been the modern sort of thing that has give our music up a little bit more of a worldwide push, and I find it fascinating when someone that wasn't born knows the words to all the words to every one of our songs. But I mean, I think that's a great thing about rock. It is a sort of it's almost a religion, I think, rock, and there's no boundaries and no age.
Do you keep current with any of the current rock and metal bands? If so, who are some of your favorites?
I'm slightly out of touch at the moment, I must admit. It's because I had my head down into the latest album that we've done for maybe a couple of years. But I mean, I'm terrible with names, to be quite honest, but I think there's a lot of energy around. I think there is some really good bands, some sort of. I mean, I've got on YouTube and everywhere else, and there's thousands. But I mean, the thing I always love, I mean, I don't necessarily, unless I hear it again and again. I just love the energy of. I always remember the energy when we first did the first things, and I think even though bands move on and they maybe do better material and become mature, I think, especially in rock, that sort of energy when you hear the first chords and the first songs that these bands play. But to be quite honest, I mean, I think a lot of these bands today, I did go on YouTube and that and watch them. I mean, a lot of bands don't necessarily get signed, do they? They promote themselves, and that's what the difference has become. And many a place we've played at festivals, there might be 5 and 6 bands on a bill when we played in Greece or in Sweden that I've not particularly heard of, but they've got themselves a following because of the internet and that, and but I can't particularly pick any out, but there's so many out there that I think have got the energy and there's so many good players and all. I mean, back in the 80s, I mean, the way players have improved, guitar players, drummers, double bass, drum playing, and everything else has become quite phenomenal, and it always impresses me the artistry of the bands.
Did you ever have formal vocal training, and how do you maintain your voice while you're on tour?
No, I never had any training. After all these years, you need to be very careful. I mean, I don't smoke. Smoke. I'm coughing now. I'm just having a drink. I don't smoke, and I think that is, that is bad, especially in rock. It's not so bad today. There's not so much a smoking environment, but when we started to play, I mean, everywhere you went, people smoked. Your clothes were covered in it, and it got onto your throat. And at the end of an evening, it could really harm you. So basically, if we've been on tour, I always very, very careful on the early dates not to oversing until I build myself up, because obviously vocals are a muscle. And touch wood, I've been okay for quite a few years. I had a few problems with my ears, like most people do, but I protect them these days. But I think with the voice, you've got to, you've not got to abuse the voice, not start screaming all the time. And as I say, smoking can damage, and you need to get a good sleep if you're on tour and things. And it's a lot more sensible a way of doing things than it used to be. But you've got to take great care and hope that you can keep it going as long as possible.
What are Demon's plans for the near future?
Yeah. I mean, at the moment we've got some. In fact, we're going to be doing a video short. We've never actually done a proper video over the years. We're going to do a couple of tracks off the album, which we've got a guy who's a professional guy, lives close to where we are. And he's working on a sort of staging idea of a video. We've also got some dates in at the moment, but we're in Germany, February, and a couple of dates in England, in Newcastle and that. But we did quite a few last year, but we're hoping to put some together, for wherever it may be, to promote the new album, and obviously to play the old stuff. But being as the album is going so well for us, we're hoping there is a promoter working on some dates throughout the year. So hopefully we will get to be all over the place.
Is there any message you'd like to give to any fans or anyone else who will listen to this interview?
Yeah, I'd just rather say to any fans we have out there that thank you for supporting the band, listening to our music over the years. It's been an absolute pleasure to make the albums and to get your response. And I know we in the 35 years the band's been going, there's been some great response and some very loyal fans. And anyone out there that listens to us, likes us, or buys our music, we just like to say thank you very much from the heart. And hopefully we'll get to come and play in your town sometime in the future. But in the meantime, have a great new year and keep on rocking. Take care of yourself.